Congress the term trillion. $14.3 trillion is our debt. Our kids already owe $46,000, and my oldest is only 11. Already owes $46,000. Our total debt is about to reach the size of our entire economy. That's kind of the framework in which we're operating in when we discuss this. Now, I actually think we're closer to some sort of an agreement on this, Senator Ayotte, than a lot of people realize. I've heard the term thrown around in the last couple of days, a balanced approach to dealing with it. And I think there's agreement that there has to be a balanced approach. I certainly have always said that you cannot simply cut your way out of this problem. You have to have a combination of cuts and growth in revenues to government. I think the debate is, how do you accomplish these two things? And I'm not going to focus so much on the cut part of it today. I want to focus on the revenue part of it, because that's the part the President and some of my colleagues here have focused on over the last day, this idea of getting more revenue, or this new term, revenue enhancers, which is Washington talk for more money to the government. And according to the President, some in his party, most in his party, I should say, the idea is simple. They think that there's a bunch of people out there in America that are making a lot of money, more money than maybe they should be making, and they just need to pay more in taxes. And if these people pay more in taxes, then all these problems will get a lot easier to deal with. That's kind of the viewpoint they bring to this debate. Yesterday we saw, and I know tomorrow the Majority Leader will be voting here on the floor on something the Majority Leader has offered up, something called the sense of the Senate, which people watching at home may wonder, what is that? Well, that basically means what's on the Senate's mind. And the sense of the Senate under this thing that we're going to be voting on tomorrow is basically that you've got a bunch of people in this country that make over $1 million, and that these people need to do more to help with the debt. That's basically the sense of the Senate that there's going to be a vote on tomorrow. It's very interesting things. So I looked at it because ultimately this is a serious issue. So let's explore this with an open mind. Let's not be doctrinaire, right? Let's not be blindly ideological. Let's look at this from a common sense perspective. This idea that all these millionaires and billionaires, if they just paid more taxes, these problems would be solved. And let's analyze it, because this is all about math. And here's the fact. The fact is, it doesn't solve the problem. First of all, if you taxed these people at 100%, if basically next year you said, look, every penny you make next year, the government's going to take it from you, it still doesn't solve the debt. Not only does that not solve the debt problem, but I looked at a host of others, some great publication that came out today from the Joint Economics Committee. Our colleague Senator DeMint chairs it. And it kind of outlines some of the tax increases being proposed by our colleagues in the Democratic Party and the President to solve the debt problem. And you add them all up. You add all of these things up, the jet airplanes, the oil companies, all the other things they talk about. You put them all together in one big batch, and you know what it does? It basically deals with 9 days and 23 hours worth of deficit spending. 9 days and 20, it doesn't even get to 10 days of deficit spending. That's how much it solves. So all this talk about going after people that make all this money, it buys you 9 days and 23 hours. Let's round it off. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. It buys them 10 days of deficit spending reduction. That's what all this stuff rounds up to. So here's the bottom line. These tax increases they're talking about, these so-called revenue enhancers, they don't solve the problem. So what do we do then? Because clearly we have to do two things. One, we have to hold the line on spending. I mean, if you keep digging yourself in the hole is going to bury you. But the other thing is, how do you start generating revenue for government so it can start paying down this debt? And that's what the debate should be about. We already know these taxes they're talking about don't work. So here's what works. Here's what I would suggest works in a balanced approach, using the President's terminology. Let's stop talking about new taxes and start talking about creating new taxpayers, which basically means jobs. Now, here in Washington, this debt is the #1 issue on everyone's mind, and rightfully so. It is a major issue. But everywhere else in the real world, the #1 issue on people's minds are jobs. And I'll tell you, every other problem facing America, a mortgage crisis, home foreclosure crisis, this debt problem, all of these issues get easier to deal with if people are gainfully employed across America. And the impact that unemployment's having across this country is devastating. We hear about unemployment in facts and figures. They give us numbers, Senator Ayotte. Oh, X% people are unemployed. Well, there's stories behind every one of those people. You know who a lot of these people are that are unemployed in America? There are people that have done everything they've been asked to do, and they've done it right. Maybe they served their country overseas. Maybe they went to college and got a degree and now came back home. Maybe they worked for 10 or 20 years and did a really good job at work, and now you know what? They can't find a job. Or maybe they were lucky enough to find a job after losing their original job, but it pays them half as much and they work twice as long. That is the real face of unemployment in America. of people that are hurting. And our job here is to do everything we can to make it easier for them to find a job, not harder. And I think that's what we have to do when it comes to a balanced approach. And when we talk about revenue, we don't need new taxes. We need new taxpayers, people that are gainfully employed, making money and paying into the tax system. And then we need a government that has the discipline to take that additional revenue and use it to pay down the debt and never grow it again. And that's what we should be focused on, and that's not what we're not focused on. So you look at all these taxes that are being proposed, and here's what I say. I say we should analyze every single one of them through the lens of job creation. Issue number one in America. I want to know which one of these taxes that they're proposing will create jobs. I want to know how many jobs are going to be created by the plane tax. How many jobs are going to be created by the oil company tax that I heard so much about? How many jobs are created by going after the millionaires and billionaires that the president talks about? I want to know how many jobs do they create? Because I'll tell you, and I'm going to turn it over to Senator Ayo in a second, because I'm interested for her perspective on this as a job creator, as the spouse of a job creator who runs a small business, as someone like me who just came off the campaign trail. Let me tell you something. I traveled the state of Florida for 2 years campaigning. I have never met a job creator who told me that they were waiting for the next tax increase before they started growing their business. I've never met a single job creator who's ever said to me, I can't wait till government raises taxes again so I can go out and create a job. And I'm curious to know if they say that in New Hampshire, because they don't say that in Florida. And so my view on all this is I want to know how many jobs these tax increases the president proposes will create. Because if they're not creating jobs and they're not creating new taxpayers, they're not solving the problem. Senator Ayo, I don't know what your perspective is on that.